I'm watching the squad patrol. They're doing their thing, and then there was this crazy alleyway that I got the heebie-jeebies looking at. And I told the platoon, I was like, hey, when you come back to link up with us, like, do not come down this alleyway. And they're tired, they're angry, they're hungry, they just want to get back. And that was the path of least resistance. As much as we talk crap on the Taliban or whoever we're fighting over there, they're smart. They know when we get tired and lazy, and they just kept walking. And they come down that alleyway. It was probably the fourth man carrying a 240. Passes right through this choke point and steps on an IED. And I'm like watching them right at this, and just pink. I was like, I mean, it was huge. Like, the explosion was massive, and I was like, oh my God.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Resilient Show. I say this every week. I'm really excited for the guest today, but this one is a long time coming. Partially my fault. I wanted to have Nick Jones come on the show really early on in the beginning of the show, because I hear a lot of veteran stories, military stories coming from the special operations community. I know so many amazing human beings that have done incredible things. But when I heard Nick's story, it just really, really inspired me that there's young men and women that do absolutely incredible things in the battlefield, completely selfless things. And their story goes with it, the behind the story of the awards and accolades, the hardships that come with it, and then rebuilding yourself. And Nick like embodied all those things. So I really want, when it comes to the topic of resiliency and what defines the Resilient Show and the stories that I wanted to communicate, I felt like Nick was like the perfect guest. And it's long coming to have him come on the show, be in studio. And so without further ado, Nick Jones, welcome to the Resilient Show. It's super, super exciting to have you in town, brother.
Thank you, Chad. Thanks for the introduction. I really appreciate that, especially coming from somebody like you.
I don't know, man. And we have your dog here.
Yeah, this is Fletcher.
Fletcher.
Yeah.
What's up, Fletcher? Fletcher's over there sleeping on the floor. So before we get going, I want to read your bio and I kind of summarize it here. Nick Jones is a U.S. Special Operations Marine Raider who has been on a number of deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other areas with MARSOC as a critical skills operator and sniper. Nick is the recipient of the Purple Heart and the Navy Cross, the second highest award for valor in the United States Navy and Marine Corps for his actions in combat, putting himself in danger to rescue his teammates from a seemingly impossible situation. After Nick's service, he founded the Talons Reach Foundation to serve other special operators in transition after their service. He lives in Montana with his wife, Hannah, and their 2-year-old daughter. Man, first of all, the Navy Cross, as you know, is not a award that's given out freely for those who are listening. I said the second highest award in military service. Essentially, you have the Medal of Honor, Congressional Medal of Honor, and then for the Navy and Marine Corps, the Navy Cross is the second one. It's a valor award for people who essentially put their lives at risk. And so just to have you on, knowing what you did to earn that award is humbling. I know a few people who's gotten that award, and all are just incredible people, incredible humans, and you're one of them. So it's an honor to have you on for that. And I know that tends to be all you get to talk about a lot because people want to know about the award and the story. And so, of course, I want the audience to hear about the story and earning the award. But I really want to get into who is the Nick that got to the point to where you were able to muster up the courage to do what you did to earn an award. And then the behind the scenes after that, after you get this award, what life was like recovering from all the things that happened that day, physically, mentally, spiritually, all the things that you went through, and the dark place that took you. And then the resilience and courage, same courage you had on the mountainside to when you earned that award, that to pull your life back together and be a husband and father and now this leader of this organization. I want to cover all that. But let's start with you growing up in Kansas and what took young Nick to want to be a United States Marine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks again for the introduction. Thanks for having me. This studio is beautiful. I mean, this backdrop takes me back home. I feel like I've probably hunted in that mountain.
Well, every guest on the Resilient Show, by the way, gets their custom background.
Yeah.
And so this I don't really chip in. I maybe correct it like one or two, but these guys nail it every time. And I think they felt like Montana really defined who you were as we were doing the prep for the show. And
I love it. It makes me feel at home. So, but thanks again for having me. And so I grew up in Olathe, Kansas, so just outside of Kansas City. I was not the ideal student. I was not the ideal functioning member of society. I got into a lot of trouble. And I was not the epitome of a guy who looked like he would go into the military. I grew up as a pretty aggressive adolescent. I got into drugs and alcohol at a really young age. And that kind of like started spiraling into me getting into a lot of trouble. I did not like school. I tried to drop out at a really young age and found myself getting arrested again. And I got another chance. Somebody came up to me. It was actually my older sister went to an alternative school. It was actually a little tiny school inside of the mall, which was wild back then. And they had moved that school to a little outbuilding next to one of the high schools. And they said, hey, like instead of dropping out and trying to get your GED, why don't you go here? You can still get your high school diploma and graduate like you were a normal student. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds way better for me. So I ended up going to this alternative school. And I found myself continuing to get in trouble. But during that time, so I guess I could rewind a little bit, telling you like I did have an interest in going in, but I never really I kept getting into that trouble and kept experimenting with drugs and alcohol. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to get out of this. But when I was a young kid, my sister's friends were joining the military, and then like all those YouTube moto videos started coming out of the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. And so I would just like watch these like wild videos on YouTube of Marines just going in during the invasion. And then obviously the commercials kind of got me. The uniforms were the best. And, I just saw the Marine photo and I was like, I want to do that. I had Marine photos all over my walls. I had like all these posters. And then when I was trying to find a way to kind of curb my anger and curb like all the bad things that I was a part of. And I went and started training Kung Fu. I trained Tai Chi, did mixed martial arts for a little bit. And at this dojo, one of his best friends was Rudy Reyes. He was Force Recon Marine for a while. And they had told me at one point, they're like, hey, this Recon Marine is coming to train here. His name's Rudy. He's actually overseas, like doing this video right now called Generation Kill. And so it was like, while he was recording that, he came back and trained at the gym. And I remember telling him that I wanted to be a Marine. And one day he was just like, well, if you're going to be a Marine, you need to get your life together. And so we ended up sparring, and he beat the crap out of me that day. And it was a really good wake up call. The lessons that he taught me there were great. But then my sensei was like, I'm going to get you in shape, and I'm going to get you better. And I got really fit while I was there. I fought a lot, and then I never got in the ring, but I trained a lot there.
Where was you? I'm curious. Where was your dad in all this?
He was around. My parents were split up. They got a divorce when I was 2. My mom remarried, then got divorced again. And then, my dad wasn't really there to discipline me much. Mm-hmm. The discipline was, it wasn't there. So I kind of felt like that's why I was such a bad kid, is I would never get punished for what I was doing. I was never I had no authority figure that was telling me like, hey, this is not okay. And even if they were, it wasn't to the point that was getting me to stop. I woke up one morning in an inpatient rehab facility, all bloody, and I was there for 7 days to get clean. And then I came back out and I just started doing the same stuff over and over again. So it was really wild to me, because now having a kid of my own, I'm like, I hopefully will never let you get into that situation. I'll do everything that I can to get you the help you need or whatever it is. So it's, I don't really have a relationship with him right now, it's strange because we were friends for a long time after when I joined the Marine Corps, but that's a story for another time, not on camera. So I kind of, I ended up getting in trouble one last time, and I worked at a skateboard shop in the mall, and I was getting taken out in handcuffs. I had just gotten a fight in the back room and was bleeding all over the place, and the cops I think strategically waited for my boss to show up, for my parents to show up, and for every person in the mall to crowd around to like embarrass me and walk me out. But that was, I think, what I needed, because I walked out in handcuffs and everybody is like looking at me and my parents are there. My mom's crying. And, you know, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I got put in the jail cell, and I called the one call that I had. I called my Marine recruiter because I was, ironically, it sounds crazy, but I was supposed to have a meeting with him the very next day, but I wind up in jail and I can't have the meeting. So I gave him a call and I was like, hey man, like I'm in jail. I don't know how long I'll be here, but I don't think it's going to be long, but I'd really like to meet after this. And he's like, okay, well, call me when you're out. So I got out the next day, got put on house arrest, and I called him. I was like, I can't leave, but if you can come here, I'd like to meet you. So he comes to my house and lays everything out. He's like, if you're going to get your shit together, time is now. Like, so here's all the stuff, and like gave everything. And I was like, I'm serious. And so he's like, okay, you're going to do all your community service here at the recruiting station. You're going to be a poolie. You're going to lead stuff. You're going to get your life together, and we're going to get you clean. So I did everything there I could. And, I talked to my alternative school that I was in. And I was like, I need to graduate as early as I can, so then I can leave for boot camp as early as possible. So we worked out a deal. I graduated December of 2009 and then went to boot camp in January of 2010. So
the infantry contract?
Infantry contract. I tried to get an 0321 contract because of Rudy. Like that's the route that I wanted to take.
Those listening, that's the recon, Marine recon contract.
Yeah.
Because MARSOC doesn't have that option.
Right. I didn't even know MARSOC was a thing at that time. They told me I would have had to wait till August. And I was like, I'm afraid that I'm going to get in trouble. So I want to go now. So I went 03 open or 03 XX. So didn't have a designator yet, and went through boot camp. And then at SOI, they ask you, the School of Infantry, they ask you like, what route do you want to take? 0311 infantryman, 0331 machine gunner, 0341 mortarman, or 0351 assaultman. Yeah. Or was it 52?
I was 52 as a tow gunner.
Yeah.
So I think they might have changed it up by that time, but yeah.
And so I was like, well, the one thing I don't want to be is an 0341. So I want to put 0311 and 0331. And then what does the Marine Corps do in Marine Corps fashion? They 0341. Here you go.
Right, what you don't want to do? Okay, that's what you're doing. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I learned real fast that they like to do the whole reverse psychology thing on you.
You probably had a high GT score.
I had a 106 GT.
Okay.
So I actually had to get a waiver to go into MARSOC for that. I was 4 points off of the high GT score. So
usually, like, tow gunners, mortarmen, usually the higher GT scores, and then rifleman, machine gunners.
So I mean, that's the crowd that I thought I was going to fit in. And then when I got put with the mortarmen, like, I mean, it reminded me of high school all over again. I was like, great, I'm with all the misfits. Like they were the crew that just, they were the outcasts. And it was like, man, I'm getting right back into this stuff.
Going into infantry is crazy, because I remember, so I went in the Marine Corps in 1993. I wanted to be, same as you, I joined wanting to be a recon Marine. However, there was no recon contract, so I had to go infantry. I picked 29 Palms because I had heard that the toughest Marines were 29 Palms. And so we rode a bus from infantry school to 29 Palms in the middle of the night. And when we got there, I remember waking up, we were in this receiving barrack, waking up and realizing 29 Palms. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I ask for? It's like desert. And then we took this other van to the barracks. And when I got to the barracks walking out, it was like going into prison. They were like on the catwalks, like catcalling us and like fresh meats. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is, like, going and being in the infantry lifestyle is, like you said, it's crazy. And and there's an opportunity to make some real poor choices and take some real, bad life choices and paths from being in that environment.
Yeah. Because I tried to promise myself that I was going to stay sober as long as I could. And as soon as I got to the fleet, it's like, oh, this is, everybody drinks. Everybody does it a lot too. So I might as well, you know, and then I just picked it right back up from there. And I mean, even though I was 18, I was still, I mean, you get it everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I started as an 0341, and I mean, I kind of started, like once I got into the Marine Corps, I changed my whole mentality, I guess, about life. And like, I wanted to be the best that I could be. So if you're going to make me an 0341, I'm going to be the best mortarman that I can be. So I took everything very serious. I tried to learn the fire direction center, like the FDC stuff, the call for fire. I tried to learn it all. I was a gun monkey, so I was just on the gun the whole time. And I kind of thought that I would never utilize that skill. You know, when you deploy overseas, I just thought that they were kind of left at the fob and you'd never do anything.
It's a great foundational skill set.
It turned out to be amazing, actually.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out of the 81 platoon, so I was an 81 millimeter mortarman. I wanted to get out of that platoon as fast as I could. I saw the snipers running around all the time in their ghillie suits and the pigs just doing push-ups all over the place. And I was like, man, like I want to do that. So we ended up deploying on the 31st MEU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit. So we basically floated around the Pacific for 6 months. It was actually kind of cool. We got to go do a lot of training and see a lot of places out in the Pacific. And then in 2011, a tsunami hit mainland Japan, and I think it was Tomodachi. And we were the first boots on ground doing humanitarian aid there. So that was like my first like eye-opening experience to like mass chaos. It was wild. Those whole areas were completely destroyed, and we were doing a lot of cleanup and a lot of like resupply and things of that nature. But then I would hang out with the snipers all the time. So I asked them, I picked their brains a bunch and made all my note cards. I was like, I'm taking your selection as soon as we get back. So we landed back in, so I was with 2-5, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines out in Pendleton. We got back to Pendleton, and I think it was a couple weeks later, I went out for their NDOC, and I got selected. I went to pre-sniper right away, and then we got word that we were going to Afghanistan in a couple months. So I was like, moved super fast. It was great. I loved it.
This would have been a STA Platoon, which, so for those listening, every Marine Corps battalion has a STA Platoon, a surveillance target acquisitioning platoon, which is where the battalion level scout snipers reside, and you know, it's an asset to the infantry battalion. Usually it sits a weapons company.
It was H&S company, and then moved to weapons company. Yeah.
Hey, before we move forward, I really want to know about your experience at STA Platoon. But 5th Marines, I think 1st Marines are two special units. They wear the Fortigé, the French Fortigé. And I never talked about it in a show before. And so if you look at a Marine in dress uniform, every now and then you'll see a Marine, like even in a blues uniform, they'll have this green cord over their shoulder hanging. And sometimes people ask what it means. Could you tell the history of why the Marines is it 5th Marines and 1st Marines?
It's 5th and 6th Marines.
5th and 6th Marines.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Man, I had a feeling you'd ask me about some Marine Corps history, and
it's like a Marine Corps board,
I want to say that
right
it was
now.
from the Battle of Bella Wood.
Yeah.
The French Fortigé is what it's called. So I'm pretty sure it was from the Battle of Bella Wood. I'm going to get freaking roasted for this, that I don't know this, but
it's you're supposed to know it because every Marine there, you get to wear it. So.
Yeah. And
it's like a board right now.
Yeah, I know, man.
I'm stumping you.
Yeah. I'm going to fail this promotion here. Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to totally lie if I say something. So I'm just going to leave it at, you know, it was from a
historic World War II battle that the Marines served with the French.
Yes.
And we're honored to have a piece of the French uniform. We can leave it at that.
Yeah. That sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah. I think I'd be wrong too, but it's my dad had it. So my dad was at 5th Marines and had it as well. So
it's a very unique touch to the uniform. It's still like hanging in my shadow box. I was actually pretty bummed. There is an order that states that you can wear it when you go to a different unit. But there was something about it that when I got over to MARSOC, I couldn't wear it in my uniform anymore. Yeah. So
It sounds like sour grapes.
yeah,
Somebody didn't have it, came up with it. I promise you, it wasn't someone that had it that came up with that order.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I have like kind of my wall bookshelf, all my kind of cool stuff that I've had over the years, and so I have my dad's Fortune from 5th Marines.
That's awesome.
Hanging there, yeah.
Yeah. Jeremy might know.
Jeremy definitely will know. He was a I don't know if he's a company commander. No, he was a platoon commander in weapons company.
Yeah.
Which was a beefed up platoon during Iraq invasion, but at 5th Marines. So he's 1st Battalion 5th Marines, so he would definitely know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask him after this.
so sorry to digress and put you on a spot, but you can let everybody bust your chops
it's
for it.
It's all good, yeah.
But I think we got it close enough.
Yeah.
From Marine like level, and we're both E6s. So
there we go.
So we but back to state platoon. You get there, you're a pig, which is kind of like a rough life in a state platoon. The hogs, but for those listening, hogs are this acronym for Hunters of Gunmen, which is a sniper, MOS trained snipers, but not everybody at state platoon's MOS trained. So you got the pigs that are there.
Right.
So what's life like at state platoon?
Yeah. So being a pig is a professionally instructed gunman. You're always carrying a pack. You're always running around. You're what they call finding a pole. So you elevate your hooves on anything that you could as soon as they tell you to. And you're doing what they call 25 and 5. So you do 25 push-ups, and your last 5, you're yelling, "Pig pride, pig pride." I mean, I think life was fun. That's exactly what I wanted, which is wild, but I wanted something hard. And that was a really good stepping stone. And it was actually when I was a pig, we were running around Camp Horno on Pendleton doing land navigation. And I remember running right by the MARSOC trailer, and I see this like MARSOC sign right there. I had probably passed it 100 times, but that was the time that I noticed it. I was probably lost. I see this MARSOC sign. I was like, that's interesting. So like, because they were wearing cool gear in that photo and had the spade on there, and I was like, this looks really cool. So, after the land nav course was over, I ended up going back to Camp Horno and going into the trailer, and I asked him like, what is MARSOC? And the recruiter in there was telling me about it, and I was like, well, how do I sign up for this? This sounds really cool. And he was like, well, what's your rank? Like, how long have you been in? I was like, I'm a Lance Corporal. I've only been in 2 years. I leave for Afghanistan in a couple months, but I'm super interested. And he said, he's like, well, you need to be in you need at least 2 deployments or an E4. And so I came back as soon as we came back from Afghanistan, and I was like, all right, I got 2 deployments. And like, I want the packet. And he's like, well, now you need to be an E4. So MARSOC kept changing their curricular criteria to get in. And so like, I got back in September. I ended up picking up E4 in October. So I went right back. I grabbed the paperwork, and the state platoon was not happy, because they were going to send me to Scout Sniper Basic School in January. And I told them, I was like, the next slot for assessment and selection is January, and I'd really like to go here. And they were about to not sign my paper. They were so upset that I wanted to leave their platoon that they completely like didn't want to sign it. So I had to backdoor them and go to the like a couple other guys that I knew over in the company headquarters. And I was like, I want to go. And I got it signed, and the platoon was super mad, and they were like, you're going to fail. You're not going to make it. You're not going to do well over there. You're this immature little pig. Like, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to move on to bigger and better things. And one day I'm going to end up going to sniper school, and that's that. And so I was like, I cannot fail.
It puts a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very typical in the Marine Corps. I'm sure all branches of the service where, it's competitive for good people, and they have a good person there. They don't want to see you go. And it's like kind of a self-interest instead of like cheering you on and wishing you go on to better things. And they're kind of willing to hold you back for their own unit. And that's, I've dealt with that in a few cases, and, but I also have had people that have really helped, to take advantage of good opportunities that come along too.
Yeah.
And, I've always, since I've been on both ends, I've always tried to, anytime somebody that's worked for me had an opportunity, as much as I hated to lose them, like, hey, let's champion this guy's opportunity and back him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you can see even a hint of potential in somebody and it's like, you want to move on, like if that's the way that you feel like you should go, like I will support you. I'm not going to be like happy about it, but yeah, you should go try.
Hey, before we move into your assessment selection from MARSOC, I mean, you did a deployment with STA Platoon.
Yeah.
You did it in Helmand Province in a pretty kinetic time in Helmand Province. What was that deployment like?
Yeah. So we went there with the STA Platoon. It was in 2012. I was in the Musa district, so Helmand Province, Musa district, and we it was a good time. I mean, that was like what I was expecting life to be like. And I mean, combat deployments, they've got their ebbs and flows. Like there's times that you're sitting on the fob and doing nothing, and then there's times that you get to go out and have fun. It was really cool being in a sniper platoon though, because we were in 8-man teams and we would get attached to the line companies. So like the infantry companies, I was actually attached to Echo Company most of the time. And we would go out on rotations with them, and we would either do some like remain behind. So we would patrol in, and then we would stop off in a compound, and we would do overwatch as they kept walking. So then it was like a little bit more discreet. We didn't have a separate insert. So it was pretty fascinating, man. Like I really enjoyed being in Afghanistan. Like the experience over there was pretty wild. I mean, I can remember a few instances that kind of shaped my leadership style in certain things. I touch on a couple things that I remember over there. There was this one remain behind that we did in this one compound, and it was like very desolate. There was like hardly anybody around, and that's kind of when you get that eerie feeling like, something's going to happen here, or there's something just not right about this place. We ended up making entry, me and 2 other guys, into this compound, and like we get in there and there's the infamous like yellow jugs just stacked everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, like we're in a IED facility or something crazy like that. Turns out those things were just filled with water, but we ended up going up, getting on the roof and like scanning this whole area. We were probably several clicks away from the Jackson blimp, which was down in Sangin, and
Sangin was a hellhole.
Sangin was a hellhole.
Yeah,
like
especially
all the time.
2011, 2012.
Yeah, and I mean, we could hear all their contact like all the time going on over there, bombs being dropped and whatnot, and like, I mean, we could see the Jackson blimp from over there, from where we were. So we were super far south in the district, and so. Anyways, I'm watching the squad patrol. They're doing their thing, and then there was this crazy alleyway that I got the heebie-jeebies looking at, and I told the platoon, I was like, hey, when you come back to link up with us, like do not come down this alleyway. And they're tired, they're angry, they're hungry, they just want to get back, and that was the path of least resistance. And these. I mean, as much as we talk crap on the Taliban or whoever we're fighting over there, they're smart. They know where we want to go. They know when we get tired and lazy. And I told him, like, don't go down there. But I'm talking to the squad leader. I'm a Lance Corporal at the time, and he's like, screw you, man. We're going where I say we go. And they just kept walking, and they come down that alleyway, and we ended up setting up initial security for them. For the HLZ, where we were going to all link up and get picked up. And it was probably the 4th man carrying a 240, passes right through this choke point and steps on an IED. And I'm like watching them right at this, and just pink bomb goes up, IED, improvised explosive device. And I was like, I mean, it was huge. Like the explosion was massive. And I was like, oh my God, like, here we go. Like, here comes the ambush, waiting for contact. Like everything was super calm. They ended up taking care of the casualty. He was a double amp. Luckily nobody died on that, but I just remember like leadership not wanting to listen to junior Marines or whatever the case was. Like, why wouldn't you just listen to me? Like, I've been here gaining pattern of life for this entire time. Like, just take 10 steps to the side and go down this other pathway. But like that kind of part of that deployment was really bugged me. So I got a little bit more aggressive as things went along and was like very stern on my, my directions if I was going to be the one talking. As a pig, I was on glass all the time instead of on a gun. So I was a spotter for pretty much everything, which actually was really cool because we had another engagement out there. This was probably the highlight of my deployment. I mean, it was the highlight of my deployment. Line platoon pushed out. We got on Overwatch. We're up there. I had a sniper on my right and my left. And I see this group of 9 individuals out there. And it was like 7 to 9 guys. And I ranged them. They were all on like ICOMs, the walkie-talkies and stuff. And I was like, they're huddling. They're getting ready for something. And I ranged them and they're at 911 yards. And I remember that specifically because it was like the correlation 9/11. And so I was all amped up and we had called it in and they're like, okay, if we get any sort of ping, then we'll know that they're bad dudes. And as soon as the line platoon pushed out, like they start chatting on their ICOM and they're like, okay, you guys are cleared hot. I was like getting all excited. I made the wing calls. I was like, you're going to hold this, you're going to hold this. And then just like sent it. And I watched the vapor trails go in and I was like, fire again, like you're on them. And then just see the bodies dropping. And I was like, oh my, like I got the goosebumps thinking about it. Cause I mean, I'm a young Marine dude. I was 19, I think, maybe 20.
Binos or spotting scope?
I was in I think it was the Mark IV Leopold scope.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was watching and like, I mean, I loved watching the vapor trails and then like hitting steel, you know, whenever you're on the range.
Yeah.
Like I loved spotting. And then watching impacts on human flesh was probably it was very surreal.
I mean, essentially you're not calling for fire, but your 0341 mortar skills are already coming into play as a spotter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're ranging, you know, sometimes if you're doing, I mean, obviously if you had to do like a intersection or something like that, which like all those skills are coming into play like early on.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was really cool, man. So we took out a few of those dudes and like just watching the rest of the time, like that the line platoon pushed out, but we were engaging up here. And then those guys would try to come out and like drag their buddies back. And then we would continue to engage. We ended up having another conflict. Those guys were pinned down by a single sniper and we actually found that sniper on that same operation and he was super far away. So we were kind of lobbing pretty much indirect fire at that because we were shooting the M110 SAS 7.62. So it was like, I mean, if anybody was a sniper, they know that gun in particular did not hold a very tight group, especially when you push it out that far. I mean, 7.62 is not very effective past, I would say 900 yards. It starts to get transonic and starts to wobble a bit, but we were sending them. So we ended up at least getting them to the point where they could move. That day, like we called in a bunch of HIMARS and like dropped bombs and Apaches were doing their thing. So it was like a full blown like movie scene that I was watching all over the place. And so that was like the highlight of my deployment right there. And
man, I want to sidebar here because what you just described is like the Marine Corps infantry battalion is like, I love special operations. I spent my career in special operations. You have too, but we know that special operations in the Marine Corps, at least not at a SOCOM level, in the Marine Corps, everything in special operations supports that infantry unit to be able to do what infantry does and, you know, close with and destroy the enemy. And that line company is what makes stuff happen. That's how the Marine Corps functions. So everything supports that. And having those 8541s, Hog, Scout Snipers on the battlefield is, you know, you're saving people's lives. You're making them more combat effective. And that has been taken off the battlefield recently. I mean, General Berger, Commandant of the Marine Corps, removed the I believe, one of the most strategic capabilities off the battlefield by closing down the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. And hearing you say that, like, validates everything I believe. Like, it just made the infantry unit less effective. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%.
What do you think the motivation behind that was? I mean, because the state platoon without the scout snipers can't do exactly what you just described, which was saving Marines' lives and making them more combat effective.
Yeah, I mean, there's numerous times when we would be up on the mountainside watching the line platoons come in doing their raids, and like, I mean, there's not a line dude that I would talk to today that say that like they wouldn't feel as secure as they did unless we were up there. Yeah, you know, it's like, I mean,
it's Overwatch, right? You got it's like a guardian angel sitting over you with a 7.62 caliber rifle or a Barrett 50 cal rifle. Like, if the bad guys come out to get me, and my guardian angel up behind that scope is gonna eliminate them off the battlefield. Like,
I mean, it's literally like that is the whole warfighting function. I mean, you need all of those elements of, you know, you need your support by fire, you need your maneuver element, you need like that recce platoon, the snipers up there, like that is an essential part of the support by fire. And
not only with sniper rifles, but being able to call indirect fire,
right?
Or being a forward observer, calling in, you know, a fire support mission or CAS. Yeah, like state platoons do that as well. Right? Yeah,
I mean, it's inevitable that the United States is going to find themselves back in a conflict, whether it's a conventional conflict or an irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, whatever it is. But like, we need those assets. And for us to have to now try to rebuild that when things hit the fan, like, I mean, that's not going to be a good day, you know?
Well, we have a new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, that's in. I'm very privileged to have direct access to him. And this is one of the cases that I plan to propose to him is the Marine Corps Scout Sniper case. And so if you had his ear for a second, and I can tell you do with this, what would you say to sway the decision to bring Marine Corps Scout Sniper School back online?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an absolutely essential part of being a very combat effective Marine Corps. I mean, I know that in MARSOC, like, they're a very essential part of the team. Like, we always try to find it, like the placement, access and placement for those snipers in certain operations. But it's like every time, every mission, I feel like has the capabilities. You need that recce platoon, like you need that precision fires. Like, I think it's a vital part of being combat effective. And the Marine Corps, if we want to maintain that warfighter mentality, if we want to be the hardest, most elite fighting force as Marines, that's what we grew up with, you know? It's like that's what we are known for, is being the most vicious, hardcore MFers in the military. And then you just took away one of our most valuable assets on the battlefield.
It's been proven over
and over again.
For decades of combat.
Yeah, like you've had several scout snipers on here before that I personally know, and like there's dudes that have been in the invasion during like Iraq and Afghanistan that like have done phenomenal work behind a long gun, and to take that away is like, gosh,
it makes no sense.
It does not. It makes no sense.
It's hard to even pitch the argument because it makes no sense at all. Yeah. Well, you know, I do intend to push that forward.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Every bit of influence I have to try to bring that back online. Yeah, I'm super proud that Smith & Wesson Firearms is a supporter of this show. I have been shooting Smith & Wesson firearms since I was a kid. This is one of America's most patriotic companies that has been around 170 years. The Resilient Show is honored to partner with Smith & Wesson. I personally use Smith & Wesson firearms every day for my everyday carry. I keep Smith & Wesson firearms in my home for my home defense. When I'm out on the range practicing, it is a Smith & Wesson at the end of my grip. So check them out, and I hope you join me in carrying one of America's most iconic firearms. So you get back from Helmand, and you go over to you take the assessment and selection.
Yeah.
We talk. I get to talk a lot about recon, but there's a lot of young men that reach out through the show, reach out to me on Instagram, and they're like wanting to know the path for MARSOC.
Yeah.
And so what was that path like for you?
So I moved really quick through my career. I took selection. I mean, I was 2 months back from deployment and ended up going to selection. So I went in January of 2013. I guess I was 3 months
3 weeks
back.
long or something.
So the way that it was when I went, it was broken down into 2 phases, and each of them were 3 weeks long. And not going to like spill any secrets about it, but it's a lot of rucking, it's a lot of running, and it's a lot of land navigation, and there's swimming. So as Marines, being amphibious, like you need to be good at swimming, and you need to be good at land navigation. If you're good at land navigation, then you've obviously done some rucking. So
Yeah.
then that kind of comes hand in hand. It's a lot of individual effort, but they're also evaluating your ability to work with a team. And that right there is like the key factor, is like, can you think critically, but also like on your own, but also work well with a team and be a team player, do things, in that setting. So I was very fortunate to come from the STA Platoon and have that pig background. So I was always carrying heavy weight. I was always rucking. I was pretty good at land navigation. So when it came time to train, I was a little silly and was like, I've done enough rucking. Like I'll just kind of maintain this and not like go harder. But when I got there, it was a rude awakening. They move faster. The rucks, I mean, they're always weighed. And I think it was 45 pounds without food and water. And then you need like a certain number of emergency chow and then your water on top of that. So you're probably walking around with 55, 60 pound rucks, when you do your movements. And, it was a kick in the butt for sure. Like I really enjoyed it though. 'Cause like those types of hard things were what kind of kept me going. And then the fact that I had that, like the driving factor of people thought that I was just a young, immature kid that, I always had a smile on my face. Like they always told me like, you're going to get caught on the stock lanes because you're always smiling. And I'm like, well, I don't know, dude. I don't want to sit here upset about stuff. Like it's just, life's
Happy.
too short, Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just, I thought, selection was great, man. It was definitely hard. I remember multiple times walking around in the woods and like looking at my map, looking at my compass, looking up, and I'm like, I'm super lost right now. I don't know what's going on. And then just running in one direction, trying to find out. And then, look, somehow I made it. So
making it through selection, you're not done. That's the beginning.
Right.
You make it to the starting line.
Yeah.
And then you go through the school, the training to become a Raider.
Yeah. It was that, I guess I could touch on that part. We started selection with 141 people.
Okay.
In that phase 0, I think. Yeah, because it was phase 0 and then phase 1. So the first 3 weeks, 141 people. So then we went to the actual selection phase with 90 people. And then 44 of us got selected. Okay. So it was a pretty high attrition rate. And most of the people drop in the pool. That's where I would say most of the drops are. Yeah. If you make it to the selection phase, land nav will get a lot of people, and then the interviews at the end will get a lot of people. So I don't know why.
Then after that, the course is how many months? Is it 9 months or?
It's 9 months long. So our individual training course, or ITC, is 9 months long. We have several phases for that. You go to SEER, you do communications and TCCC, so the the medical phase of it. And then you do small unit tactics. So learning basic infantry skills, because any MOS can come out to be a Raider, go to MARSOC assessment selection. So, and a testament is I had a really close friend still who was a IPAC Marine. So he was an admin, a pay guy.
Yeah.
And he crushed it. And he's doing stuff right now in a different place, and he's still crushing it. Yeah. So it's just awesome to see like different walks of life. And I think that's what makes MARSOC so special.
It's same in the Army, right? The Green Berets.
Yeah.
Same thing. You come from anywhere.
Right. So I think it's awesome. If you're trying to limit yourself and you're like, well, I'm just an admin Marine, like there's no way I could make it over there. They're going to teach you everything that you need to know. So if you have any inclination or want to go try. Like you're going to beat yourself up the rest of your life if you always say, I wish I would have done that. Just go freaking try.
Yeah.
The individual training course was 9 months long. After the small unit tactics, I think we did the shoot house stuff. And then we did special, reconnaissance stuff, and then the irregular or unconventional warfare stuff. And then following that, when I went through, we had 6 months of language after that. So I learned modern standard Arabic for 6 months. And I don't know if they're still doing language. If they are, it's a more condensed version of that.
Yeah.
And then, right after that, you get assigned to a team and you get to check into your unit. So I got assigned to 2nd Battalion, I almost said 2-5. At the time, it was 2nd MSOB, and then 2nd Marine Special Operations Battalion. And then when we became Raiders in 2016, it turned to Marine Raider Battalion. So 2nd Marine Raider Battalion is where I ended up.
You end up being, military free fall parachutist, advanced sniper.
Yep.
And then you get to deploy as a Raider or Raider critical skills operator. I've heard both.
Yeah. So before Raider became a thing, we started out as CSO or critical skills operator. They tried to call us MDO, multi-dimensional operator.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of names being thrown out there. And then when the voting came out for the device, they didn't put the skull on there because it was too offensive. But yet now we have the patch with the skull on there, but our badge still doesn't have the skull inside of it. It's weird. The Marine Corps was getting soft. So I really hope that we go back to being a hard Marine Corps again.
Yeah. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
At least for the next 4 years.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this change. So when I got to my team, it was actually really, so this is where the whole Mortarman thing kind of comes full circle, is when I got to my team, I didn't go to any specialty schools before my first deployment. So we were scheduled to go to Iraq in 2016. And we were up in northern Iraq area. The first area that I went to was Kirkuk. And at that time, ISIS was still relatively fresh. They were still hot and heavy over there. I think 2014 is when they did their initial huge push and took over a whole bunch of land. So by 2016, there was the huge FLOT, the forward line of troops that was built, but there was this huge berm that was covering all of the Kurdistan region. So we were working mainly with the Kurds over there. And my team, they told me when they selected me was they had a baseball card list of guys, of all the new guys that were coming to the battalion, and they knew where they were going, and they saw my Mortarman skills, and they were like, this is the guy that we need because we know that we're going to get, in more longer range conflicts. So when I got to the team, they were like, you need to teach us mortars. And so it was we went over to the 18 Bravo committee and got to work with some of their mortars and things like that. So it was really cool to be trusted. I was this new guy all of a sudden put into this position where now I'm in charge of weapons. I'm leading, training. I'm running an FDC now. I had to do everything that a mortar platoon had to do, but with 2 guys. So it was the level of responsibility that we had was it was wild. I mean, I felt like a real adult. I felt it was really cool. So then when we got over to country, we deployed with a 60 millimeter mortar and an 81 millimeter mortar. And then when we got there, the SEALs had a 120 millimeter mortar. I had never played with one. I'd never touched one. I had just heard about them, and most of the time they were on the electrical MTAS systems. Basically, they move around for you, but they had one with bipods, base plate, and tube. And when we went to pick it up from them, it had 8 inches of dirt in it and trash. And I was like, what are you guys doing? This is the most valuable weapon right now on this battlefield. So we cleaned it up, polished it up, got it all operating and running, and they had so much ammo for it. And I was like, give it all to me. We will use this, because we were using our 81 already and we were dropping a lot of bombs. So we were like, this is an organic weapon that we can use, and we don't need like that much clearance to drop mortars. So it was a very valuable tool for us. I mean, man, I dropped so many mortars on that deployment. There was an operation that was like 3 or 4 days long that I dropped over 170 rounds. And a 120 millimeter mortar, it's huge. It's 44, each round is 44 pounds.
It's like a football, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's massive. And like, and that tube is, before the base plate is sunk, is like about as high as my head. So, I mean, you're lifting this thing up and over and dropping it into the tube, and it's pretty gnarly until you get that thing sunk, and then it gets a little bit lower and lower and lower. Then you shoot so many and you're in the hole with the base plate. The base plate, I think it was like 90 pounds. It was heavy.
Yeah.
So
you say you're basically set up your own FDC. Like, can you explain what that means to the listener? Like,
yeah. So FDC, Fire Direction Center. So like I had this little handheld computer, and we would have to like register our gun. So like my microphone is the gun, and it's like, okay, I want to be able to shoot this entire village. Basically, I want, my left and right lateral limits are set on my computer. I can't go outside of this degrees, and my gun will reach out to 7,200 meters. And so I set all this up. This is my main firing direction. So now I input all of this stuff into my computer, and I have my FOs, my forward observers, which are normally other team guys, or we would launch our Puma, our UAVs. So like our drones. Drones are way more advanced now. It probably sends you data.
Yeah.
They got the bombs right on them now. So
yeah, exactly.
You don't even need mortars. So I would input all of this stuff into my computer, and then we would lay the gun in, and then now I'm getting corrections every drop that we make. The forward observer gives me a correction. I input that in here, and now it gives me this certain data to put on the sight. And then we put that on, and now we get the gun back up on the aiming stake that's out there. Looks like a candy cane. And then we fire again. And yeah, I mean, that 120 millimeter mortar was like our long range sniper rifle with a heavy amount of explosives.
Yeah. Incredible asset to have out
we
there.
We leveled villages. There's one mission. There was a lot of missions, but there was one mission in particular that I remember it was a very large offensive push that we were getting the Kurds to do. And we did our little psychological operation 3 days leading up. We dropped a lot of bombs, and then we dropped a lot of mortars. And for 3 days, we softened that village up. And then the Kurds went in and they pushed in, and a whole bunch of other tribes pushed in with them. And it was wild, like watching them. They would bulldoze up. They had these Mad Max vehicles with armor all welded onto the side and stuff. So they would bulldoze berms. They would fight to those berms. Then they would like end up getting into the city. And the way that they were communicating back to us is they would raise flags on all these buildings. And so at the end of that, they wheeled this huge flatbed semi-truck stacked with bodies, dead ISIS fighters. And it was just like, it was the most wild thing. But like when they were doing their push in there, ISIS was retreating down this like 10-mile road. And I had target reference points on that entire road. So I was just doing a search and traverse mission with a proximity burst that actually covers like 75 yards, the kill radius. So like watching a 120 millimeter mortar like splatter over a football field, you would wound almost everybody on that football field. So
what month was this? It's 2016, right?
2016. So that was April into May.
So it really correlates. We had a previous guest on, a friend of mine, Sebastian Gorka, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He's just appointed the director of counterterrorism under President Trump, and he was previously. And so he told me about a conversation that took place in January of 2016. President Trump gets in the White House, and previously President Obama said it would take generations, decades, to eliminate ISIS off the battlefield. And President Trump says, what do we need to do that now? And all the Joint Chiefs are in the room. Sebastian Gorka's in the room, and he says, all you need to do is let our special operations do their job. And President Trump said, kill them all, and let the boys do what the boys need to do.
Yeah.
In the subsequent months, ISIS was essentially eliminated off the planet in about 5 months. And so I think what you're talking about right now is the result of a commander-in-chief letting guys like you do what guys like you do.
Yeah.
And put 120 mortar tube out there and annihilate a enemy village.
Yeah.
And which, in different administrations, different rules of engagements, and oftentimes you're restricted from doing stuff like that.
Yeah. It took a while right when we got there. I remember actually watching the election when we got to country, and we were praying that the other candidate did not win. And when it took a few weeks for things to start lifting, but like we saw it slowly and slowly, it was just like, oh yeah, like more organic weapon systems are starting to get cleared at the team level. Direct fire engagements without like approval beforehand were getting cleared. Because like if you saw an ISIS fighter with a weapon on the other side of the flot, you still couldn't shoot them unless you had probable cause, positive ID. And like they basically had to be engaging you or engaging your partner force for us to be able to engage. But even still, we technically weren't supposed to engage. It was supposed to be our partner force that would engage.
And then when those rules of engagement changed, it was game on.
Yeah, it was game on. I mean, we didn't even have armored vehicles yet. And well, we had some armored land cruisers, but we were rolling around in F-150s, and my F-150 wasn't powerful enough to pull my 120 and all my ammo. So my partner force gave me an F-250, an super old one. It was hilarious, man. Like I had cop lights on top of my thing, so I'd be driving around the town like, whoop, like get out of my way. Like
that could be a good Ford commercial.
Yeah, for real, man. I've got a picture of an F-150 that we slid into the back. I've got javelins on either side, minigun mounted on top of there. The other F-150 has a Mark 19 up there. The other one's got a 50 cal up there. So like we came loaded every time. So we made these fabbed these awesome like mounts in the back of them that just slid right into the bed. And like we had, I mean, it was so cool. I was like, and that was my first special operations deployment. And I'm like, this is wild. Like I'm in a light skinned vehicle in an F-150 for all things, like just jumping on the back and just, I mean, I was like a little kid in a candy shop. It was really cool.
That's what you kind of dream of being able to, in a special operations. Let's fast forward to 2020.
Yeah.
Is this your last deployment?
Yep.
And March 8th is a significant day for you. That's the day where you earned the Navy Cross and was awarded the Purple Heart. I don't know if there's anything leading up to it that you need to share, but love for you to share that story, that operation.
Absolutely. Yeah. March 8th, 2020, we were tasked with a large Cape clearance operation. This was right around, it was the same time that COVID started to kind of run rampant in the world. And I say that because originally our sister team was the lead on this operation, and we were following it very closely because just in case they needed us, they were going to pull me as another element leader to help them out. So I was in charge of guys at that point.
You have some experience now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was my third MARSOC deployment. I was on my fifth total deployment. And I was actually in charge of like developing the scheme of maneuver. So our sister team, their whole partner force got COVID. So all of a sudden their partner force couldn't go. So now that team is out, and they handed it down to us. And so I had 4 days to make a plan and train my partner force. Luckily, they had done a lot of the recon and a lot of the footage was already there. So I made the scheme of maneuver. I was very close and intimate with this plan. We were up in the Mosul Dam at that time. So like I had mountains to my training and rehearsals. So like I had been already working on a lot of subterranean warfare stuff. We were developing an SOP for it, standard operating procedure. to be able to combat these caves, because we had already gone in several at that point. So we were basically tunnel rats. And I mean, we were creating this really good SOP to get in there. And so this was perfect for us. It was in our wheelhouse. We had everything at our disposal.
What region was this?
So I was in Mosul, but this was basically in between Mosul and Erbil.
Okay.
It was called the Makmur mountain range.
Okay.
There's just little sliver of mountains that are like right in the middle of a big desert.
Just all the Iraqi insurgents are just digging in that mountain network. There's like a network of tunnels and stuff there. I've never been there, so I'm curious.
It was the Kurds there was a defined like line right there. There was Kurds, and then there was like ISIS dug into there. So ISIS was back down to an insurgency level. They were like in these sleeper cells in Mosul. So we were doing like hits with the SWAT team there. And then we would go into the outskirts of the village and finding those sleeper cells and stuff. And then they found this huge cave complex. So they had a really intricate system in there. And ISR had seen 7 total caves that they had found. And then they got boots on the ground. So it was a joint operation too. So we had some French with us and then our Iraqi partner force. And I had about 50 Iraqis with me. And then we split up into 2 assault elements, took helicopters in, and the plan was to kind of soften it up with a lot of explosives. And at that point we had known dropping a bomb on a cave like that is only going to maybe disrupt them, but it's also going to disrupt the earth. So it's going to be way harder to find any trace or sign of IEDs, any sort of booby traps or anything like that. It's going to be way harder to walk on a mountain that's all just dust now. But it was helpful, I guess. So it concussed a little bit of them. Then we had snipers and some machine gunners in place that kind of came in before the assault element. So I guess backtracking just a little bit before we inserted, they had always seen, I think it was 7 fighters. They had seen these same fighters coming in and out. They were always in chest rigs, or, they always had weapons on them of some sort. So we knew that there was going to be people there. We knew that's why we put the bombs on target, and that's why like the snipers and stuff went in beforehand too. And we were basically going to be the cleanup crew. And then it was 24 hours before we were about to go in. All of a sudden there's 9 guys, and then 12 hours there's 12, 11. Like more people started showing up the closer we were getting to insert. And then I think by the time that we got the go there was probably 19 fighters. And anybody who's been on a combat operation, that there's go and no-go criteria. And a part of the no-go criteria was amassing of double the troops that were on the ground. And there was over double. So there was a lot of things that were already pointing to like, hey, this should be a no-go. We inserted in broad daylight. As special operations, we work best at night, and we didn't get to utilize the darkness to our advantage. But we went in anyways. And as soon as we landed, man, it was like this really eerie feeling just kind of swept the battlefield. And I walked to the top of the mountain. I met the ground force that was there. They kind of gave me the down low on everything. And my old team commander was up there. His name was Mo Navas, and gave him a big old hug. He's like this 6'4" giant, and gives me a big hug. And I was like, hey, Mo, like I think my water is kinked in my backpack. Can you help me out? And he's like pulling on it, and he's like, dude, you have no water in here. So he's like, gives me all of his water. And I was like, dude, no, you're coming down with us, so you need to keep your water. He's like, no, man, I'll be in the back with your magazines if you need them. So just let me know. And so we kind of joked about that up there. And then we started heading down the mountain. And our partner force started getting really scared. I mean, the mountains were getting bigger. The rocks were getting steeper, sharper. And when we get there was several fighting positions that were not on the map. We didn't see them on ISR. Like ground level is a whole nother beast, and you could see bunkers all over the place. Like these guys had stacked, whether it's sandbags or what have you, rocks to make these fortified fighting positions. So we had to keep a very, very close eye on everything. And we started making our way down. And I remember me and my buddy, we shot rounds into several caves that just looked like, I mean, there was a couple that had like sheets flapping in the wind, and we're like, I don't know, somebody's probably in there just watching me. So we would send rounds through those. And then we finally got up, saw some caves with some people in there, did our dead checks, and then kept moving on. As I was about to enter into a cave, is when I got a call saying, hey, the remainder of the assault force is going to split off and go check out another cave. And I told them, like, hey, just stay where you're at right now, and then we're going to consolidate and start our clear from the top down like we planned. And then they kind of they went that way instead. So now our assault force is split up, and the support by fire can no longer see them because they're separated by a terrain feature. And then this is where things started to go wrong. They kept getting sucked more and more into their work down there, and then they found a cave that was not on anything. At first they found a solar panel that was up there, and so they went to go investigate it, and it was a French special operator in the U.S. They started to like pie around this cave, and then there was a couple other steps taken, but I'm kind of brushing over some of those wave tops. But long story short, yeah, the French operator kind of slides down the mountain to pie this side, and then the U.S. guys pie this side, and they see the French operator first and open up on him. They wound him, and then when the other two U.S. guys kind of show right in front of the cave, they were hit right away. And all the while I'm up in another cave staring right in the face of this like dust covered dead ISIS fighter. And I mean, I can still see that dude's face all the time, because as soon as I'm like about to make entry in there, I had just called it up. That's when hell breaks loose behind me. Like explosions, automatic machine guns. Like, I mean, in fighting in the mountains is a whole nother beast. The echoes and the sounds, like how they carry, how the percussion, it's wild. So I start hearing the casualty calls coming over the radio, and then like there's one casualty down, and then they're like, there's an Eagle down. And I was like, oh my God. And like my heart dropped. So an Eagle is a U.S. service member, U.S. special operator. And so another, second goes by. I was like, it's okay. Like they've got this. They know what to do. And then the next call comes in. There's another Eagle down. I was like, oh my God. Like my heart just drops. And I was like, I have to go. So I turned to my partner force. I was like, you guys watch this cave. Like I'm going. And I run over there.
I want to make sure everybody listening understands when he says a partner force, a lot of times MARSOCs with a partner force would be a foreign entity.
Right.
So it would have been
Iraqis. Iraqi partner force. Yeah. So I picked my stuff up and ran as fast as I could over there, in most untactical fashion I could. I picked the path of least resistance, and I actually ran by these two caves that had blankets and sleeping bags and stuff in there. So I just shot those as I run by, and I'm like, I mean, if there's people in there, they're dead now. So I got to keep moving. And they were like little fighting pockets. They weren't like full caves. So it was wild. Everything was like strategically placed to like overlook this one cave. And so I get down there, and there's still chaos happening. There's smoke coming out of there. There's still gunfire popping off. But there's pockets of people just frozen. And I was like, what's going on? Give me the lowdown. And nobody's saying anything. So I'm like, well, screw it. There's something going on in this little ravine. So I just threw my ruck off. I had like a 40-pound satchel charge in there, because that's what I used to blow caves up with. So I took that thing off and I jumped in there. And there was a French operator in there, and he was guns pointed down the ravine, and I couldn't see the cave at that point. So I start like kind of crawling my way up there, and I try to talk to him. I'm like, hey, where's the casualties? What's happening? But he's just like fixated. And So I'm like, okay, this kind of answers my question. They're up here. So I crawl up and I crawl up these like big boulders. And mind you, this ravine is closer than these walls here. I mean, it was very close. So it was really loud in there as well. And I ended up crawling up, and then like that's when I see this like dark cave, this very like, I mean, slit in the side of this mountain. But like, I mean, I took the picture in really, really quickly because I had no other time to kind of think. But I mean, there was so many sandbags, rocks like placed in there to make this like perfect fighting position that they had in there. And obviously I saw it and they saw me, so they ended up pinning me down like right away. But I caught a glimpse of a body that was right there, and I was like, for how much fire they've got coming at me, there's no way that dude's alive. But this French guy starts yelling, and he's like, roll, 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 like saying it in French. I don't know if roll in French is the same as roll in English, but I started hearing him say something, and then next thing you know, I see these legs fly up in the air, and I was like, oh my God. So I just like chicken wing my gun and run up there as fast as I could and grab this dude. And like, I mean, there's bullets flying over our head at this point. And I'm still shooting as my gun's chicken winged, and I pull him down and I rip him down as hard as I could. And I pull him down these rocks, and then I feel them or this guy start grabbing him and dragging him away. And then it's just like full on, like I'm both hands back and I'm just gunning as fast as I could and do a little tactical reload and get back up there and start shooting. And then I finally hear another US dude call over, and he's like, hey man, like I'm coming in. Do you need help? I was like, dude, do not come down here. It's like, somebody throw a smoke or something, like get me out of here. And like, I got to this is not the way to go though. And so finally, like somebody throws a smoke, and I get the opportunity and I run out. They're packaging this dude up, treating him. He was shot through and through in the left leg, blew out his calf, and then he was shot in the top of the head. Helmets work. They it like went in the helmet, but like ricocheted through and like just gave him a nice haircut. So he was alive. They packaged him up, and then they ended up having to hoist him out in the Skedco. Hoist is like the thing that comes down on I know that there's some listeners that probably don't know what that means, but like the helicopter dropped a long wire basically, and medic came down and picked him up from the ground. It was way too steep to land, and there was way too much stuff going on, so they couldn't land. So I finally get out of there, talk to my guys. We come up with a plan, and we send a couple guys to the other side, and they went north of the cave, and like they came around. So now we had like a guy on the ground, like trying to look into the cave over there. And then I stayed on top of the cave. So I talked to my snipers, and they walked me on, and I used this dead tree as reference. And every time I would walk up to that, so I crawled up the first time, and I went up to investigate to try to find the other two casualties that we knew that were out there. And at the time I knew who it was because I knew who wasn't there. And
they were US guys. Who were they with? Or
they MARSOC. They were Raiders.
Oh, they were those Raiders. Okay.
Yep.
So these are two of your guys you're trying to find.
Yeah. Yep. So because I was looking around trying to get a head count, and I mean I had a feeling who it was.
No Blue Force tracker or anything like that on them?
No. No. We had the ATAC systems, but we only really used those for jumps. We didn't always use those for battle tracking. I think that they do use that a lot more now though.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I walked up there, the snipers walked me on. They're like, I think I see a body here. And as I'm approaching, like I start getting closer and closer to the edge of the cave. And that's when I see Diego first. Diego Pongo was my team chief. So he was the highest enlisted in our team, in charge of our team. He was a gunnery sergeant. And then I could tell right away that he was gone. And then I see Navas. He was a captain at the time, but he was the executive officer of the company. So there was only one other officer higher than him, the commanding officer. And Mo was posthumously promoted to major. He was a Mustang beforehand. He was my team commander on the last deployment. So we spent a lot of time together.
He's the one that gave you the water.
He's the one that gave me the water on top of the mountain. So when I saw him, he looked like, I mean, he was still kind of sitting up and kind of slanted back. His hand was still on his gun. Like he was fighting until his very last breath. But it almost looked like he was like ready to like push himself back, you know? So I was like, maybe he's still alive. So I tried whispering his name a few times, and I didn't get a response. So that's when I like went back and I called it up, and I was like, I confirmed with, the commanders. I was like, Mo and Diego are gone. And, normally you got call signs, you call up their Zap card info and stuff like that. But, at that point, like I used real talk, and I told them, and everyone like went silent. And the commander was like, say that again. I was like, I'm not going to say it multiple times, but like Mo and Diego are dead. And like, they just could not process it. Everyone was like in the black. Like it was insane, and nobody would make a call. So I'm like, okay, sir, like I'm going to go back in. Like these dudes are sitting there. I'm going to try to go get them now. Like it came from a cave clearance operation to now it's a recovery operation. So we got everybody together and we're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. I went in a couple times and I tried to get them, but it was like, as I would get close, it's like they could hear me walking on the roof and they would just start opening up. But it was like, we were getting shot at from all different angles. It was really weird. So we started like plugging other holes that were in the other side of the mountainside. But I was calling to my snipers. I was like, I trust you guys, just shoot them. Like I'm going in, please, like, just don't shoot me. And so, they were shooting within feet, inches of me is what it felt like. And they, like that's a testament right there to how valuable like our snipers are in the battlefield. Is like, yes, we went to MASC, the advanced sniper course, but like the way that a scout sniper is trained is like they're trained in the most intense and austere environments to be able to provide those precision fires on select targets, like in combat operations. So for them to be able to provide those, there's no way that they couldn't see me in their scope. If they were that far zoomed in, then they were doing it wrong, which I know that they weren't. So they were providing those accurate shots on target for me to be able to do my job. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that type of trust on the battlefield is exactly what we need in our special operations or in our snipers. Like they need to be able to provide those precision fires. So anyways, they were working, and I kept trying, and I ended up pulling back. It was too heavy at that point, and called in the support by fire to shoot in their Carl G's. They tried to shoot several of those in there. We had a couple duds. We had a couple that skipped off the top. So I was like, okay, this isn't working. So we called in the Apache. They shot 220, 30 mics in there. And there was zero effect on the cave. So I was like, all right, thread a Hellfire in there. Like, well, we need a 10-digit grid. So I was like, okay. So I walked up there, and the Apache's still circling around. I was like, can you guys see me? And because my JTAC, he's like, hey man, I'm too far removed. I need you to do this for me. So I'm like, okay, like I'm not a JTAC. I will talk to you guys and I'll tell you what I need though. So I'm talking to them and I tell them like, hey, here's your 10-digit grid. I'm standing on top of the cave, just shoot 5 meters lower than me. And like, there's still like pop shots and stuff going on. And I'm talking like loud over the radio. And so they're like, okay, roger that. So you need to move up and over this mountain. I was like, I'm too tired and I don't have any more water, so I'm not doing that. I was like, I'm going to hide right behind this rock. And they're like, just get low, man. So I was like, okay. And that was the scariest thing that I've done. Like, I'm minus all the combat stuff, but like watching an Apache and just the Hellfire coming in. It was so close that it was pretty intense, man. It hit, but it did not do what we wanted it to do. So I was like, okay, we're going back in. And so we all get online, and we had snipers covering other positions of opportunity. And I was like, I'm going to throw a couple of grenades and we're going to see. I guess I kind of skipped over that part. Like I would go up to the cave on multiple attempts, and I would like lean over, like you're kind of like looking underneath the table, and I would chuck grenades in there. I was using ASMs, so they're anti-structural munitions that were like, I think it was like I'm going to mess this one up. It was like 0.9 of a pound of a C4. So, I mean, it was a lot of explosives in this little hand grenade. So it was basically meant to like explode, but then suck everything in to like collapse structures. So I loved those things. I had those for cave operations all the time, and I threw several of those in there. I threw high concentrate smoke in there, and then another ASM to try to like flush them out that way. But they're cockroaches, man. You cannot kill these people. And so I'm sure I wounded and killed some of them, but they just kept shooting every time I would get there. And then, so I went in for that final attempt, and I'm like standing up there, and I was like, okay, this is it. Like I'm all amped up, and we're shooting. The Apache had just like launched these flares, and then all of a sudden I'm like, this is my cue. Like we go in and we start just blazing. And then as soon as I get to the edge, man, and I was like trying to work up the confidence to jump down there, I just whack like right in my leg. I was like, oh my God. And I like hit the ground. I roll back down. I go down to my medic. I was like, dude, I think I just got shot. He's like, what do you mean you think you got shot? I was like, I don't know. My leg hurts really bad, and there's some blood coming out, and lifts my pant leg up. And he's like, yeah, like you're definitely wounded. So it was like, yeah, a little tiny hole in my leg. So it must have been a ricochet. But like my leg started to swell immediately. Like they thought my leg might've been broken or something happened. I don't know. It kind of looked like a 5.56 entrance, which is not surprising. It was not friendly fire because the cave that I had just taken, they had 5.56 on them. So they had everything. So yeah, I ended up, we tried to not call the medevac right away, and because we still had things to do. They were calling in other quick reaction forces to come in to kind of finish the job. But at that point, like I knew I was done. I couldn't walk. I couldn't put any pressure on it. So I ended up calling up to the commander. I was like, hey, we probably need to move back right now, make a new plan, and wait for QRF to get here. And at that point, they contacted the special mission unit that was out there, and they were going to come in and finish the job at night. That wasn't set in stone yet whenever I got medevaced, but it was very, very probable that they were coming. So I ended up getting medevaced. I got hoisted off the side of the mountain too. I ended up walking up the mountain to try to get to a good spot to get medevaced from, which hurt really bad. I finally took the pain meds on my way up because I realized like I'm getting out of here. So I started handing out all my stuff that I had left. And at that point, yeah, the meds were kicking in. They put me in the helicopter. They hit me with ketamine right away. And I had the worst trip of my life. I got sucked back down into the cave, and I hear Mo and Diego like yelling for me to try to get them out of the cave. And I'm like trying to talk to them and hit my push to talk and like yell back. And next thing you know, I like wake up and I'm in the hospital bed, and I'm like strapped in, and I'm like screaming now. It was like a movie scene. It was the most wild thing, but like I just kept yelling like I was so close. I was so close. Like, I mean, I could feel his hand like right there. If he was alive and had one last breath and could have reached up, I could have pulled Mo out. Like that's how close I was. And so, yeah, man, it haunted me for a really long time because I was the epitome of the operator that didn't believe in PTSD. I didn't believe that like, you know, if you just weren't strong enough to deal with the job, like, and this stuff affected you, then you probably need to go somewhere else, you know? But, man, that was definitely the weight that hit me hard. I tried to stay in country. They tried to tell me that my injury wasn't that bad. And then I'm in the hospital with the French guy, you know, and his leg, he's got a huge hole in his leg and like all this stuff. And I'm over here with this little entry wound, and but like my leg is so red and swollen already. And like, I mean, it was wild. It felt like my leg was burning, like on fire. So like that was at the same time Iran was doing all their threats. Like they were actually bombing Baghdad and Erbil a couple times and stuff like that. So like my team was building a whole bunch of bunkers, and I'm like, dude, I'm a liability. I can't move. Like, so I raised my hand. I was like, I need more help. So they sent me back to the States, and that's when everything started happening. COVID was obviously a big contributing factor to all of this, but I get home, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. I got no visitors, nobody from the command, nobody from the Marine Corps, nobody from MARSOC, SOCOM. Nobody was even there to greet me at the airport. I had to fly commercial back home. I landed in Wilmington, North Carolina, and my wife and my teammate's wife were there to pick me up. I mean, they had just lost their husband, and she's there to pick me up, but nobody from the command was there to greet me.
Oh, this is Mo's wife that went to pick you up.
Yeah.
With your wife.
Yep. Yeah. Mo and I were really close.
Yeah.
She was there to pick me up, and she knew that I was one of the ones that was wounded, but also the one trying to save him. And then, so I got home, I had to quarantine, and then I had an appointment up in Walter Reed to go get my first surgery. So my wife had to coordinate all of our own travel. We get up to Walter Reed, and I'm up there for weeks, get my first surgery, and then start having complications. But like, it was such a weird time because, you know, Walter Reed was completely empty. Maryland and the whole DC area were a ghost town. But the most interesting part was that I still didn't get a visitor. I still didn't get a freaking phone call. I didn't get a letter. Wounded Warrior Project didn't even reach out to me. Like, that's like their number one thing is like right away, like, here's a little care package or something for your family. Like, here you go. The Marine liaison didn't even freaking know I was there. Like, it was so odd. I'm like, how do you let this, whatever the hell is going on in the United States, like, affect you from coming to see me? Like, one of the only combat wounded dudes in MARSOC right now. I mean, there was a bad mission 6 months before ours.
That's not a lot of kinetic.
Yeah. I mean, they completely
support and advisory, right?
Yeah. It was very strange. I'm like, so then I start thinking, I'm like, did I do something wrong? Like, I already heard the word, like they put me in for this high award. So like, I mean, you're not going to award me if I did something wrong. So what the hell is going on here? And so like, and my wife needed help too. Like, I mean, we needed support, and there was like, we had friends obviously, but like, it was still like, it was very weird. The community, the brotherhood that was there was like nowhere to be found.
You blame oversight of the command. I mean, obviously the administration changes in the way that administration, the Biden administration, handled COVID and shut everything down. I mean, I'm not trying to politicize it, but where would you point the finger at? Like,
I mean, there's really no other explanation.
Yeah.
I guarantee you Trump would have been right there.
Yeah.
Like, I can't guarantee that.
Right,
but
right.
I mean, there's a very high probability that somebody from that administration, and not that I'm looking for like accolades or whatever, but like, not even the freaking command couldn't come see me. Like, we're special operators, man. Like, break the freaking rule once. We've done it multiple times. Like, that's how we get so good at what we're doing. It's like
COVID wouldn't know. I mean,
yeah. Like, I had a random dude from the unit come visit me. Never met this guy in my life. And he went to a school with one of my buddies, and my buddy told him that I was there. He was one of my only visitors. Other than that, it was a guy from my sniper platoon. And I was
knew
like,
you there, I would have came visit you, man. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. And that was another thing. I was like, dude, it's not like it was a classified operation. There's nothing secret about it. Like, people can know about this. So like, that's like what really like started this whole dark spiral of like, that's like how I knew something was going on, man. And like, and then all these complications started happening. I had all of these goals and dreams, like to go to bigger things. Like, I wanted to take selection again, to do the long walk. I wanted to go over there and
like to a special mission unit.
Yep. I had all of these things in place. Like, I was I was at the tip top of my physical capabilities. I felt like I was a pretty decent special operator. And then when that hit me, man, I was just like, dude, like now nobody cares about me. Now all of this stuff is happening and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then all of these complications are starting. And now it's like, I'm walking around with a cane. Like I couldn't move. I was like crying at random stuff. I'm like, dude, this is bad. And then we had the first celebration of life for Mo, and which was in July, I think. Yeah, it was in July. So happened in March, and we couldn't do it until July because of COVID. And now a lot of it was we wanted to wait until the team came home. The families wanted to wait till the team came home, but they also wanted to wait till these COVID restrictions lifted because they're like, we don't just want 5 people there. They were restricting visitors at Arlington, and they're like, they need the honors. They deserve to be buried with their team and things like that. So, but it was really hard to relive all that. And like, I'm in a freaking cane. I've got stimulators hanging out of my body and stuff at that time. Like, so anyways, we do the celebration of life. And when they do the roll call, like I had the worst mental breakdown, like the worst, like lip quivering cry I've ever had in my life. And I walk into the back and like, I mean, everybody can see me doing that. And I walk into the back, talk to the medical officer. I was like, I need help now. And that was the first time I've like legitimately asked for help. I was like, you guys failed me at the beginning. I was like, I need you to do something for me now. And he's like, well, I know that this Intrepid Spirit's got a X number of months wait. I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I need it. And they did. They made it happen. I got put into this clinic. I was in like basically an intensive type care for a while. I was going to treatment multiple times a week. And then that was like kind of the catalyst to me starting to move again. Like I started like getting more proactive with my recovery. And I would have my ebbs and flows. I was like falling victim to my injury. I was like, this is taking me. And now I'm getting medically retired. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I ended up getting invited out to go be a guest speaker at the Special Forces Charitable Trust event in San Antonio. And I was like, they invited me out to speak. And I was like, I've never talked about this before yet. So I don't know what I'm going to say or do. And as I started talking, I like things started happening and moving, and like I started crying and other people are crying. And I was like, at the end, I was like, I just want to be able to share my story and share my experiences in hopes that other special operators understand they're not alone going through these struggles. And then all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start this foundation. I'm going to bring guys out to Montana. My wife and I knew that we were going to go out to Montana at that point. I was like, we're going to bring them out there. We're going to educate them on all these different signs and symptoms that come up. And then we're going to help them and guide them through ways to mitigate that through all of these holistic means, whether that's art, music, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, any sort of movement. And then we're going to get them outdoors and experience the outdoors and this beautiful sceneries and going in the mountains, floating down rivers, snowmobiling, whatever it is. Like we're going to get them out there and we're going to give them that sanctuary, that safe space to be able to share their stories with other people who are going through similar circumstances. And so I came back, I got some team guys together. I was like, will you help me start this? And they're like, I'm right there with you, man. So I was going through the Honor Foundation. I utilized a lot of their resources and a lot of their network.
It's great. Honor Foundation does a great job.
Amazing.
Yeah. Those guys.
They do amazing work. And I mean, they helped me get on my feet a lot. They opened their network to me, and they kind of worked with me because I was going through surgeries at that time too. And I mean, I'm just like laying there on my couch in my meetings and stuff, and I'm like trying to dress appropriately, but I'm like, dude, I'm over here bleeding on my couch, and I can't do too much. But they worked with me, and it was great. But yeah, so we incorporated that in January of 21. And all the while, I'm still going through these surgeries. And I ended up having one surgery that I thought was going to work. I ended up getting infected on day 10. And I ended up going septic and like damn near dying. Like, and this was another time that the Marine Corps kind of, like, it was just wild, man. I had to get basically rushed from Wilmington Regional up to Walter Reed because they were the only ones that could like do the administration of ketamine infusions at that time. And they wouldn't facilitate a lifeline. They wouldn't give me an ambulance. So my medic that had been helping me out the longest time rented a van because they wouldn't give us the duty van because it was outside of whatever. So they had to rent a van and they had to put me in a van, and they had other corpsmen that rode with us, and they would administer drugs to me while I'm like in excruciating pain, like dying in the back seat. Finally get me up to Walter Reed, and I'm on like, I think it was like 12 different antibiotics, and they were just like trying to kill this infection, and they ended up cleaning it out, cutting me open, and I was up there for several days. And I mean, that was rough, man. I thought I was surely going to die. That was actually the same week that I got approved to get Fletcher through this organization, just a random company outside of Jefferson City, Missouri. And I morbidly like answer the phone, and I was like, man, if this infection right now doesn't kill me, I'd gladly take this dog. And they were like, okay. I don't know how to respond to that. And I was like, yes, seriously, like I'm in a really bad situation right now, but if I make it through, I'll call you. And so yeah, I mean, he was gifted to me at 8 months old and was a huge help getting me through everything that I was going through.
Yeah, man, first of all, my heart breaks that you went through that. Unfortunately, I've seen that happen several times with people, especially leaving a deployment, coming back home, separate from your unit, and then you get separated, and their op tempo is still going. You're back home, just not done correctly, and breaks my heart that you went through that, and to know that the Marine Corps, the military as a whole, and the VA has let you down. But right now, you know, I really challenge, you know, Secretary Hexef now and Doug Collins of the VA. Like, we have a chance to do it right. And the reason we have a chance to do it right is because we've seen it done wrong by guys like you. And, you know, we just hadn't done a good job. And we could do better. And you talking about these experiences, hopefully it'll make it better for the future guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really hope so. And even if it does kind of, you know, you feel like you've been forgotten about, or you feel like you're going through some situation like that, it's like, there are people that do care.
Yeah.
Whether it's an oversight or whatever it was, but it was like the multiple times that I was up in Walter Reed and still didn't get a visitor was one of the more shocking things. And it was like, I remember getting from a friend of mine, I was like, you know, why isn't anybody seem like they care? And they're like, because Nick, you're tough. You're a special operator. You can get through this. And I was like, that's not the point though, man. Like, at least show me that you care, so then I know I have somebody that's watching out for me, you know? And so something that, you know, it hurt me really bad was, so everybody knows on August 26th, 2021 was the day that the bombing happened in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That was also the same day that I got awarded the Navy Cross. That's also Talons Leach's birthday, which was a really wild coincidence. But I was prepping for my speech, and I get a call from the Secretary of the Navy's office, because the SecNav, Carlos Del Toro, was going to come down and award me the Navy Cross. And they call me and they say, hey, I'm sure you heard, but this just happened in Afghanistan and we lost Marines, and we need to represent that. We need to be there for that. So we're not going to be there to award you your award. I was like, tight. It's happening again. Like, nobody's going to be there. It's going to be the general MARSOC. That's fine. Cool. Like, my buddies will still be there at the award ceremony. So like, it's all good. I'm still prepping. And then I get another call like 10 minutes later from the same number. And they're like, just kidding. It was actually the Secretary of the Navy that called me, Carlos Del Toro. He's like, hey, he's like, I just want you to know, he's like, we're spinning up the helicopters and we're coming down there to award you this award. He's like, unfortunately, like, this stuff has happened for the last 20 years and we've lost people for the last 20 years over in this conflict. He's like, but not every day somebody is awarded the Navy Cross. And he's like, I feel like it's important to award both things and give both things my attention, but right now I need to give you mine. And I was like, that's super admirable. Like, thank you. I appreciate it. And so, like, you know, during my speech, I addressed everything that was happening over there.
So he was there.
But yeah, he came. Yeah, he came down. His whole their guys came down and awarded me the Navy Cross. And I felt this like insane connection to the guys that got injured. And it was ironically on, I think it was 9/11 or that weekend, I went up to Walter Reed to go visit them because I was like, I don't want them to be forgotten about. I had enough time after that. My family had left North Carolina.
This is the survivors of the Abbey Gate bombing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So Fletcher and I went up there, just him and I, and was like, God forbid, like these kids, they were young kids at the time, are left up there without any support. Like, I don't want that at all. So it's like, I wanted to do my part and go visit them because nobody freaking visited me. And man, I got up there and the first door that I opened, I started crying because of the overwhelming support that they had, like flowers and care packages and flags signed from who knows. They had been awarded their Purple Hearts from freaking everybody under the sun and all this stuff. And I was just like, I mean, I was crying tears of joy, but also sadness for myself. Like, the little kid in me was hurting so bad. I was like, man, like, I'm happy for you guys. Like, I'm not going to take anything away from you guys. And I just sat there with the families, man, and I talked to them. And I was like, I just want you guys to know that there's people that actually care. And, you know, you're getting a lot of support from people that I don't know if, you know, whether they wanted to publicize that or not, but like, there are so many people out there that care about you. And I mean, we saw it for the last several years that there's foundations popping up and they're supporting them all over the place. I mean, you went over there and you were rescuing people left and right from that whole thing. And I mean, like, the people that helped out with that are absolutely amazing. And like, I just really wanted those guys to know that, you know, they're not alone. Whether they're special operators or not, it doesn't freaking matter. Like, they still deserve some sort of support. So it was really, really good to see. And Fletcher got to get his in there and helping people out. So that was great.
That's one thing I could say from the 15 years or so that I've been doing Mighty Oaks and, you know, seeing organizations like Talons Reach that you're doing, just going around the country and raising support for these kind of causes is that we do have a very patriotic country that loves and supports our troops, and people do, regardless of politics and all the divisiveness, people do care about our troops. And I mean, to the point to where you were able to do your organization because people philanthropically give. And, you know, Mighty Oaks, we do between $7 and $8 million a year we'll do this year for support. Like, that only happens because people care. Yeah. It's not because people are looking for a tax write-off, right? People care. And there's lots of places they can give, but they choose to give to our troops. And it's amazing to see, and it really encourages me to see that kind of generosity.
Yeah. I had no idea that type of stuff was out there when I was active. You know, you're so wrapped up in what we do, and because if you kind of start sidetracking, you're like, well, I'm not going to be as good at my job, you know, but I think it's super important to understand the resources that are out there, because if you don't know, which I feel like the military does a terrible job when you're active of telling you all of the resources that are available, but there are so many amazing nonprofits out there doing amazing work. But like, if you can get educated and you can utilize those resources, we literally fundraise our butts off for you guys to get that help. So whether that's transitional help, whether that's mental health or actual physical health, there's so many nonprofits out there that do it, spiritual health, like everything. So that's what I wanted to dedicate, you know, my life to is helping give back to those special operators who are either currently still serving or are retired, trying to help with those moral, mental, or physical wounds that they've endured during their operational experience. So it doesn't have to be related to combat. They don't have to have a Purple Heart or a Valor Award. Sure. We saw too many times that, you know, guys who don't have those types of accolades don't get treatment. But now there's so many, you know, there's been peacetime for a long time, that like, there's people that need help.
Just from training and just a lifestyle. It's a hard lifestyle.
Yes.
The military's, you know, and by the way, for those listening, only 0.5% of the U.S. population serve in the military. So it doesn't matter what your job is. You're part of only 0.5% of the population that's raise your hand, willing to serve and sacrifice and potentially lay down your life. Like, that commitment alone is a burden. And then the training and prep, and it's just military life it's a fun life, but it's a hard life too. And there's tons of people, tons of organizations. I think 45,000 veteran service organizations exist in the United States or so. And you know, Mighty Oaks is one, Talons Reach is another. And it's a grateful nation of people that make things like this possible to support. So take advantage of it. Yeah. In closing, the show is the Resilient Show. Your story is a story of resilience, not just combat, coming home, finding that rock bottom and rebuilding, and now not only rebuilding for yourself, but doing the Talons Reach and being able to build something to help others. when we talk about resilience, we talk about, mind, body, social, and spiritual, being able to have a strong mind or rebound with a strong mind, being healthy, physically healthy, surrounding yourself with the right people, and having a strong spiritual foundation. Of those, what advice would you have for not just military folks, just the listeners in general for life, a lesson, words of wisdom on the idea of resilience?
So there's a lot of circumstances that you're going to find yourself in life, whether you're a businessman, whether you're a husband, father, mother, daughter, wife. There's certain things in life, and the way that I look at, I guess, healing in general is it's never linear. There's always going to be ups and downs. It's like climbing a mountain. You're never going to see this valley that's around the corner. You're always going to have some sort of obstacle to navigate. If you can take these opportunities as some sort of lesson, as some sort of pathway to another opportunity, you stop looking at these hardships as something that's detrimental to you. You stop defining yourself with that hardship. So when I was going through all of this stuff, I very much defined myself as this wounded operator, as this wounded guy who's no longer capable of doing all of these special things. Until I started to dissociate myself from the injury and from the mission, like I was stuck. I was a victim to that. I was going to go down with it until I removed myself from that. And I was like, no, man, I'm Nick Jones. I have the power. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a brother. I'm a son. Like, I am capable of doing all of these hard things, and I'm capable of doing them well. All I have to do is put my mind to whatever challenge it is. Like, we've been through so much. Take that hardest experience that you've had, use that as a life lesson, and continue to push through that, because you're never going to be done. There's going to be something else that comes up. Things are going to get hard. Things are inevitably going to get harder. I feel like the older that I get, the more hardships that come. Like, now that my daughter's growing up, I'm worried for her boyfriends because they're going to have to meet me. But now I'm a softie, and I have a heart, and I actually I love more than I hate. And it's amazing to see how much growth has come from such a really bad day. But if you take that worst day and you turn it into something, some sort of life lesson, I think that there's just endless possibilities. Because if you can turn it into something good and you can give back from it, or you can give some sort of lesson from it, there's somebody out there that's struggling. There's somebody out there that wants to hear your story. But if you keep it all in and you never talk about it, somebody may need to hear your words, and you'll never know it until you talk about it. But it's also going to help you. So the more that you talk and the more that you share, I feel like it's healing you, but it's also helping other people. So I've kind of taken that as, as my own gospel, and used that to my own advantage. And I like talking about it now. Yeah. Because the more that I hold it in, the more that I hold in all of this stuff that has brought me down, it hurts. And my biggest supporter is my wife. And if I hold anything back, or if I'm starting to kind of recluse and not share my emotions or my feelings with her, she can sense it. And then all of a sudden there's this tension, and it's just it's going to blow up one of these days. So it's if I can trust in my most important network right there, that is my wife or my friends, or whoever it is for you, whoever you trust the most, utilize that network. Trust in them, believe in them, and share with them, because they want to be there for you, but they don't know how to be there for you if you don't know how to open up. Mm-hmm. So if you never say anything, nobody's going to know. And we're very good at compartmentalizing. Yeah, as military guys, businessmen, I feel whatever name you want to put onto it, the first responders, law enforcement officers, you guys are also, you're in the same boat. The more you hold it in, we're so good at that compartmentalization, it's one day going to come out as something ugly. And whether it's the destructive habits that you do, the self-destructive drinking or drugs or whatever it is that is your poison, talk about it, get it out there, do something about it, take that proactive step to get better. Yeah.
Like you said, that could have been the worst day of your life, but you could take it and redirect it to have value and purpose again. And That's same with me, man. I never thought I'd public speak ever. Never wanted to public speak. Now I thoroughly enjoy it. I enjoy it because of the encouragement I get back from other people saying, I got my husband back. I got my dad back. Thank you. I was gonna kill myself, but when I heard you talk, I realized I wasn't alone. Like it's brought value in it to me, so now it compels me to continue doing it. And same thing's happening for you, and that's amazing to see, man. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for Talons Reach. By the way, guys, in our show notes below, we'll have some links for Talons Reach. If you're a special operator. You guys serve special operators who could utilize Talons Reach, how you could benefit from the program. Also, it's an incredible organization to support. I personally have supported it, and some of my supporters at Mighty Oaks have supported it. It's an incredible organization support. You can't do programs like this without the charitable giving of a patriotic nation. So, I know we always promoting Mighty Oaks, but man, what Nick is doing and what Talons Reach is doing is great work. So it's a great place to support. And then 501c3 as well. So it's nonprofit, tax deductible donation. Correct. Nick, we have some incredible sponsors that make the show possible. Smith & Wesson, Vortex Optics, Gators Eyewear, BioPro supplements. We're drinking some holy water right now. So we're sanctified. Ally Wealth Management's another one, and then Bio Accelerator, stem cell therapy. Not everyone that comes on the show gets access to Bio Accelerator, but so I'll tell you about some of them. Bio Accelerator. I'll start with Bio Accelerator. Bio Accelerator is a stem cell company in Medellin, Colombia, and they do stem cell therapy, and they have done a lot. I went down there. They've done a lot for a lot of my buddies who have served and been injured and couldn't get the care in the States. Stem cell in the States is not what it is overseas, unfortunately. And UFC sends everyone down to Bio Accelerator in Medellin. Incredible. So if you ever want to get down to Medellin and look at stem cell for some of the injuries you still have, they're definitely the place to go. And I'll get you some information offline on it.
That'd be great.
BioPro is a non-synthetic HGH alternative. So it's a very natural kind of Eastern medicine, natural. And so we're going to get hooked up with a supply of that. A lot of benefits for recovery and mental clarity, but what I notice most is sleep. I went from 4 hours to 9 hours. I say it almost every week, like infomercial. But it really, I'm a believer. And a lot of guys that come on the show that we give this to, like Eddie Gallagher, for example. I think Eddie Gallagher came on the show, got some, and now he's like promoting every week. He's like promoting because he just loves it. And then I'm sure you've had Gators glasses before. But Gators Eyewear is some of the best ballistic lenses, and it's just American-made company and just great people. Smith & Wesson Firearms, and Vortex are our premium sponsors. And I know we talked about a gun for you, and so this is mine. And I'm gonna get all the comments. I'm gonna get somebody saying that I was having that gun flagging me the whole time. And by the way, it was not. You're just looking at a funny angle in the camera. But so this is the Smith & Wesson Volunteer. Got a Gemtech suppressor on it. I got the AMG holographic optic with a 3x on it. And man, I don't know where you sling, but this is a Ferro Concept sling set up on it. So this is my like go-to carry. I love this gun, and I got it built out for me. And so we'll build you out something similar, but Smith & Wesson and Vortex wanted you to have something nice, and we're gonna hook you up. So this
amazing.
Is you can't leave with that one, but we'll hook you up with yours.
This is amazing. I'm a weirdo lefty, so
are you?
Yeah, but I love it, man. This is really cool. And Vortex Optics, they're absolutely amazing. We were talking about them before. They've supported us in our fundraisers and things like that. But
man, Shamus Terry is like, he's the VP of Vortex and kind of my liaison there. Spent time with the CEO of the family, and Shamus is literally one of the most incredible human beings you ever meet. And like, he is so giving. And I know he's like donated optics for Talons Reach for your auctions and stuff like that. They're just so incredible.
I love this.
I'm gonna hook it up, man.
Yeah, it's great.
So, well, thanks for coming on the show, brother. If not following Nick, we're gonna have everything down in the show notes below. But also, if you have not yet done it, Like, comment, subscribe, whatever platform you're on, please subscribe to this and share it. We cannot do this without you. We're so thankful for all the listeners that make this possible. And get signed up for our Patreon. We got some incredible content coming up on Patreon. Love you guys. Thank you. Until next week, stay resilient. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You can join for $15 a month and get behind-the-scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.